This is Dow Houston, and I want to welcome you to my YouTube channel. My videos address how to change your circumstances in life, whether they be financial, personal, social, or just life in general. I know there are hundreds, if not thousands, of similar sites. With that said, for better or worse, I just see the world differently than others, and I can tell you without any hesitancy that you will find thoughts, strategies, and ideas here you won't find anywhere else. It is my sincere hope you will find the content interesting and enjoyable. Thank you. Hey guys, Dal here this morning. Hey, I've got multiple lessons and thoughts going on today, so just kind of stick back and listen. In no descending or ascending order. First thing is, it is Friday morning. First lesson: be honest with you and yourself. Especially yourself. And I'll tell you this, if I can make it through a few more hours, it's the weekend and I don't have to go back to my office. Now that may sound very condescending, negative. I don't care however you characterize it. I know a lot of motivational, inspirational people talk like they're some kind of superhumans. They're up at 3 in the morning and run 30 miles. Then they come in and they write a book. They then have these big power days and then go out and party all night and start it over again. And it's just, hey, I'm a superhuman. And unless you're geared up and superhuman and all the time, well, first, I've never met a superhuman. I've heard people say they're superhumans. I never met one. I've met people who say this guy's a superhuman, and when you watch him, you find out, no, he's not a superhuman. First lesson, be honest with yourself. Second lesson, there aren't superhumans, okay? Second lesson, I was sitting on my front porch having a cup of coffee, trying to wake up, think about what my day was going to hold, thinking about what I was going to do, what I wanted to talk about. And my mind went back about 30 some years ago to really my first true girlfriend. Now, before I get started, I am not, for my present wife, I am not sitting here saying I had emotional feelings this morning. I'm just going back in time about a lesson I learned. It was only a couple-month relationship, so it wasn't anything big, don't get me wrong. But I did learn multiple lessons out of this. I learned a lot about myself and how one should proceed in life. Okay. At that point in my life, I was about 27 years old. I had spent, at 25, I had been involved in farming and ranching, some other agriculture interests, and I had lost everything financially. I mean, I had lost it all. I was so deep in debt. I drove a $100 pickup, okay, that I owned with my dad. Is $100 that he paid and I paid half of it, so we had a pickup together. That damn poor. I had to put a couple of quart of oil in it a week to keep it going. But I had, at that point, I had finally gotten up the decision making and it raked together enough emotional stamina. It wasn't much, but enough that I decided to go to college, okay? And there I met a girl, attractive girl. Her parents were wealthy. He had a business. They belonged to the country club, and we would go visit them quite often. They'd take us to the country club and dine. And I, despite having a very strong backbone, that I knew I wanted to get ahead in life, that I was not content with where I was in life, I was so intimidated. I was so insecure that I couldn't see what I was or who I was. Second lesson I'm trying to get at is this girl would talk about her father. And if you just outwardly appearance, you would think that they had had several generations of wealth. Now, this is in the mid-'80s, and the mid-'80s was a different time. Times were changing, and there was an allure to old wealth, okay? To old wealth. And if you do have, it's one thing to just have wealth, that's not enough. It had to be old wealth, okay? Still, I know there's places in the country that still work that way. Okay. Well, clearly I didn't have any wealth at all, and clearly it wasn't anything I had. I had old poverty. I had old poverty, but I didn't have old wealth. I had no wealth. So I was insecure as hell, okay? And she'd tell the story about her dad. And she said, Dad wasn't always like this. When him and Mom first got married and he was young, he walked to work, and his job was working on a road crew, swinging a sledgehammer, breaking up curbs. And he did that for a year or two. Then he got a better job, finally got enough money. He could go out on his own, open his own business, and things were off and running. Then his own business allowed him to invest in other things. Now, at that point in my life, I was immature, even though I was 27. At least emotionally and intellectually immature, let me say that. And all I could see was I was poor and they were not. And she was told this story over and over again, how proud she was of her dad, and the thought going through her mind of him going to work and swinging a sledgehammer all day. Now, they all had wealthy friends. She had wealthy friends that were her age. And I was incredibly intimidated and insecure around them. And it showed. But make no doubt about it. I'm being quite honest with you. There is no way of painting a pretty picture about me on this. I was extremely insecure. I'd go to these events and try to talk, and I couldn't. I mean, I was just, who am I? I'm a poor farm kid. I am recently broke. I have no clue what the hell I'm doing in life. I have no idea what I'm doing in life. I'm trying to find myself after believing I was going to be a farmer and rancher, and I have no idea. So anyway, but what I found years later, looking back on that, was that she was telling me she was attracted to me because I didn't have those things. And that despite all of these guys being around her that were attractive, that had it, that what she really admired was the ethic and the stamina of her father. And I was so blinded, I couldn't see those words. I couldn't understand that. So sometimes, I think back to my dad. I'm not throwing my dad under the bus, but we had talked about, God, I want to get ahead, and this was my younger days, and even then, want to get ahead, and hey, so-and-so's doing this. Well, their dad was wealthy, their granddad before them was wealthy, so hey, you're just looking at it wrong. And I'd look at someone else that was my age. Well, God, they come from wealth. How can I do this? But what I was learning, what I should have been learning, was I was comparing myself to the end result, and that being that somebody had made wealth in that family, and I was seeing it. What I needed to be comparing myself to was the person who had made the wealth, who had made the family, okay? And how much that person was held in esteem. Because had you looked at that person when they were my age and had nothing, and that guy was going to work to swing the sledgehammer, for lack of a better word, he was a nobody too, okay? And nobody looking at him and said, oh, he's going to be a millionaire someday. He's going to live in a nice home. He's going to be a member of an exclusive country club. No, he was a guy walking to work to sling a sledgehammer. That is who I should have been comparing myself to, or at least, and that's a whole nother series of topics, so I don't believe in comparing, but not to get sidetracked. A whole different deal. And so remember that. So that's lesson number 2. And that is compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges. I had something that those other young men and women that were in that circle could never do. And that is, they could never come from nothing to create something. Now, that's not a negative comment about them that says that would make me better than them. I'm not saying that. Please understand me. I'm just saying they never could have that opportunity. It was foreclosed just by the mere fact that they had come from wealth, okay? Even if they said, I'm going to give up all my wealth and start from free, they still come from a household that understood wealth and how it operated. So they could never, ever say that, whereas I could. Now, that's not, again, not saying I'm better than them or anything else. Understand that. I'm just saying you need to, I talk about critical thinking. And critical thinking is important so you can back yourself out of a situation and look at it from a fresh eye. Not from what you think you're seeing, not from a clouded perspective, but from what is right in front of you and say, I'm looking at this wrong. So critical thinking is so, so, so important. Knocking your beliefs down is another thing, because, I can conjure all kinds of beliefs. Oh, well, hey, they're much more elite people than I, this and that, why would they want me? And yet, looking at it back, now I'm not saying it would have worked. I didn't want it, ultimately would have wanted it to work, okay? But she was telling me, in probably no uncertain terms, that was an admiration of her seeing me, okay? That despite that, and in my mind, I was like, why could anyone want me, a poor kid who had went broke, over someone who gets to go to the country club every day, and went to nice prep schools and nice high schools and nice colleges and belonged to nice fraternity. Why? I couldn't get it. Okay, that's just a freaking weird belief that you have. But anyway, so that's the second thing. There are also multiple things in here. I let not only that belief cloud me, I let my insecurity. I should have been finding in myself, and had I had a clear mind, I could have looked at myself and said, no, I can never have these factors of these other people I'm looking at, just from where I came from. No matter how bad I want that at the time, it will never happen. It cannot happen. That is already set in stone. But what are my strengths? And my strength ultimately was my backbone and determination to make something of myself, irrespective of where I came from. And I should have let that be shining and put my efforts into that, in my strength and my confidence into that. Instead, I let my insecurity speak for who I was and what I wanted to be, which was an ugly, ugly, ugly picture. So there's multiple things here today, guys. And you've got, and you may say, well, this doesn't ever apply to me. I don't have this situation. The fact of the matter is, you may not have a girlfriend that belongs to the country club, but you've got to take the lessons that I am saying and pull them apart and say, what is not the facts of the matter? What is the facts, but what is the lesson? And pull that lesson out and apply it to your life. I know a lot of black and white people have trouble with that, but ultimately, you can also develop that strength and that ability to get past facts. And I don't mean that in a flippant way, but to extrapolate the lesson and say, That's the lesson. How do I apply that instead of looking at the facts and say, well, the facts you say don't apply to me? Bullshit. You know, the lesson does. The lesson does. So anyway, guys, with that said, I'm going to call it a day. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you get something from it. Talk to you later.